bouncing puck. Can they hold it in? Blazinski does. Blues, walks, fires, scores! Just in close.
The sounds of college hockey on a Wild Wednesday, but we are going to talk Wild. We're going to talk NHL. Welcome to the Jeff Dubay Show on a Wednesday. Fantastic production quality from Jason McGovern. I am Jeff Dubay. We are at Bennett's Chop and Rail House on West 7th, as we are wont to be on a Wednesday. The Golden Gophers of Minnesota, the Big Ten tournament champions. You just heard the highlight, courtesy of the Big Ten Network. Dan Kelly on the call, along with Rob Andringa and Ben Clymer. That was Justin Kloos with a championship-winning goal, power play goal in the third period. Gophers went on to win 4-2, adding an empty netter. And with that win, they go to the NCAA tournament where they meet an old friend/foe, the UMD Bulldogs. Gophers UMD coming up 5:30 Friday night from Manchester, New Hampshire. And joining me yesterday via the taped interview, the head coach of the Bulldogs, Scott Sandelin, and he, the reason we did it yesterday is because they are traveling to Manchester, New Hampshire today. But anyway, I had the chance to sit up for about 13 minutes with my good friend Scott Sandelin and talk some UMD Bulldog hockey. All right, we're happy now to be joined by Scott Sandelin. I mean, I'm in Bennett's Chop and Rail House on West 7th. And this is our fifth show here. We've been doing this for just over a month. And from the day I walked in, Scott Sandelin, Joe Bennett would not stop shoving Bulldog down my throat. I mean, he's got the Stay Locked jersey behind the bar. What drives me even more nuts is he says, every time you're in town, he hosts your team for the team dinner. And I told him, I said, well, what the hell are you feeding these guys? Because they've been. I mean, I'm a Gopher fan. I mean, it's my background. I'm a season ticket holder. And I'm like, these guys have been just you've owned us for the last couple of years. It's getting a little embarrassing. So I said, what the hell are you feeding these guys? And next time they're here, let me know. I'm going to come over and slip some Benadryl in their soup or something. I mean, this something's got to change.
Well, as long as he's taking care of you guys when you're there.
Oh, God. Seriously, how great is this place? I mean, I could live on the chopped salad alone, but then the sirloin and the au gratin potatoes, I mean, the place is unbelievable. He said you guys eat like animals when you're there.
He feeds us pretty good. There's no question.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and he's so proud. I'm up to the left, forward. I said about 10 o'clock from where I'm sitting are beer stains on the ceiling, and he refuses to clean them or take the tile down because it's from the night you won the national championship. It's like it's like he shakes your hand, he's never going to wash his hand again. That kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's right. That's a good alumni right there.
Well,
he's proud.
Well, one last personal note here. I've got a nephew. And obviously, I'm a diehard Gopher family. We've got season tickets, and I got my nephew's 20 years old. But from the time he was 6, 7 years old, he liked to swim upstream. He liked to be a burr under our saddle, but he couldn't take it so far. He couldn't go be a fan of Wisconsin. That was too much. That's like kissing Hitler on the mouth. He couldn't do it. And with all due respect to you and your alma mater, he didn't have it in him to become a North Dakota fan either. So he decided early on that he would be a Bulldog fan. And he did it partly to piss off the family, and also partly because it's a sister institution. It's part of the family. So he could do it by being a burr under the saddle, but not completely getting himself excommunicated. But in all honesty, he's a 20-year-old kid. He's a sophomore up at Duluth now. You can't miss him. He's 6'5" with curly hair. But he was a defenseman with a mean streak back in the day. You should have looked him up. But he I mean,
the way the second half was going, I should have.
Well, he still is 6'5", but I mean, I had the pleasure of sitting next to him at the X when you guys won the national title, and I tell you what, I jumped to my feet when it happened too. I mean, I couldn't help myself. It was a great weekend, and to see my nephew have the time of his life. I mean, it was almost as special for me as when I saw it in 2002 with Patolny and the boys.
Yeah, it was obviously fun. It was a great place to have the tournament, and obviously great for our fans in our community to be able to get down there. But it's a pretty special building, for our program as well as probably Minnesota.
I'll tell you right now, Scott, when you guys lost to Denver a couple of weeks ago, my first thought was, I don't want to be the team that plays Duluth. I mean, going back to the WCHA days, the old WCHA, those 2 or 3 days at the X were a grind, physical, emotional grind. And I've seen teams miss playoffs, have that first-round loss, which nobody wants. I understand that. But when I've seen teams have that first-round loss and come out just spitting fire in the NCAAs, that week off can be a good thing.
Well, we hope so. I mean, obviously the last month and a half, we had, injuries to key players, which everybody goes through, but it was a struggle, and, we kind of kept our head above water, but I think, Denver was just the better team, certainly Saturday, and I thought we played a strong game Friday. We had a couple defensemen playing forward, and we had one suspension with Krause, but, I'm not a guy that makes excuses. I mean, I think we look at it as this, certainly we're going to have a healthier lineup. We're getting, all of our guys, there was a couple guys that one was sick, one was hurt. You get your guys that have played through a lot of those injuries a little bit healthier, and, it's exciting. You kind of get your lines back together. So we'll see. Our guys are excited about that. I know we'll be a lot more fresh than we were had we had to play a couple games. But you never know. I mean, teams like to play at this time of year. Kids like to play. Obviously, playing Minnesota is a great opponent for us because you don't need to say a whole lot to get your kids excited about that.
And I know, November's a long time ago, and as a coach, I'm sure it's something you're going to say over and over again to the media and in press conferences that the games back in November with Minnesota don't mean anything right now, but you did sweep them, and you had some success against them last year too. As a matter of fact, I think it was a Sunday game that you just absolutely rolled them at Mariucci. Am I not mistaken? A couple of years ago.
Yeah, they beat us the Friday game, and then we beat them on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
and,
like 6-1 or something.
Again, so both games kind of took, each team had their way each night. So it was a good win for us, obviously, to bounce back.
Well, what about the weekend this year? I mean, you had a home and home in November. You swept them. You took care of business. Last year, you guys played in the North Star Cup, and the Gophers got you in that one, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, it's good to see that these games still happen. I mean, we missed the WCHA. You've got a pretty reasonable facsimile of the old WCHA right now in the NCHC, just in terms of how competitive it is. I think it's even harder because you don't have anything at the bottom. You know what I mean? We had, back in the day, we had Michigan Tech, we had Anchorage. I mean, we had some breathers. Not that they're soft anymore, but back in the day, the bottom of the WCHA was soft. You don't have that in that league. Even Colorado College at the end of the year was no joke.
No, it's been a really challenging league. It's been fun that way. There's no question. There isn't any easy weekends, and I think you saw that as the year went on, and you see that with the teams that we have in the tournament. Obviously, that's partly due. I mean, a great part of that is that we did a great job non-conference this year, where last year we weren't as good, and I think that obviously helped all of our teams with strength of schedule and getting 6 teams in the tournament for sure.
With all due respect to our head coach down here, Don Lucia, you guys. What is it with you and the Italians? You get all these guys with the vowels on their names in the vowels, and they kill us. Whether it's Iaflalo or Cameronese. I mean, and he's from our backyard. He's from Lucia's backyard, for God's sake. But all the way back to Marinucci. I mean, you guys kill us with these guys. But then, seriously, I remember a couple of years ago, Iaflalo, that 6-1 game that weekend. Iaflalo, I've never seen a guy charge up the slot with such reckless abandon to go to the net and challenge D the way this guy did. He was a beast.
Yeah, I can't explain getting all the Italians. I mean, I'm a Finlander, so they must like coming up here. But we've got some great kids from a lot of different places. We've had a good run of kids from down in that area, and we're happy to have all those kids be a part of our program. But it's been fun. It's been fun. We might not have all the big names, but I certainly like our group, and we've gotten, like I said, some great kids from down there, and we've got some real good ones, I think, coming down the road too.
Yeah, we've had a tie-in with the NCHC all year. Last month, actually, having to promote the Frozen Face-Off. We had Bobby Motzko on the show. We had Stefan Patton on the show. Josh Fenton a couple of times. And I want to ask a question that I've asked, I think, to all of them. Back in the old days of the old WCHA, there were 2 schools of thought. One was that this great schedule and this great conference gets you ready for the postseason. The other was that maybe it wears you down a little bit. And I thought it was interesting last year because the Gophers last year, I thought they kind of cruised. I mean, they had only a handful of conference games, and then they when it comes to playing like stuff like the North Star Cup, that's not a grind. That's fun. It's not like playing Duluth up in Duluth in a conference series. That's a grind. And I felt when the tournament rolled around, The Gophers were fresh. I mean, Bobby had a great team at St. Cloud last year, a fantastic team, and your conference champion. And the Gophers really kind of took them apart in that regional final. I mean, it was a 4-0 or 4-1 game, and it was really never competitive. And I thought to myself, boy, maybe this Big Ten thing, maybe you want to coast, maybe you want to breeze through the season. Does the NCAA wear you down, or does it get you ready, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, I think it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, there's no question, every weekend is certainly a challenge. Throw on that, we played a pretty strong non-conference schedule this year too. Like for our team, just speaking on our team, I think that's been that way the last 2 years. So, there hasn't been really any easy weekends. Not that there is in college hockey anymore. I think there's a lot more parity, but, I think playing some different teams, different styles that we see within our league. Western plays. They're a bigger team. They play, a more grinding style. They don't give you a lot of room. Then you've got some teams like St. Cloud, like Omaha, that get up and down the rink. North Dakota's got, they've kind of changed a little bit too. They don't have, the big physical defensemen. They're very good offensively, which has been a huge part of their team, as well as a solid group of lines. But it's different styles, and then you throw in some non-conference games. Sometimes, like our schedule this year had more of a WCHA flavor, so there was some familiarity with a lot of those teams. Obviously, we played Minnesota 4 times. We played Mankato. We played Michigan Tech, and Northern Michigan. So that it was kind of nice to kind of go back to, and a lot of those teams don't change per se their style, but it's been fun that way to play against different styles, and I think that prepares you more than anything.
Well, I tell you what, I miss seeing games up at Lakeview, up in Marquette. Is it Lakeview? Is that what it's called? That barn they've got up there?
The old one. Yeah, the old one. They got the new one now.
Oh, I didn't know they rebuilt. Oh, good for them. But I mean, I remember watching, like in the mid to early '90s. The Gophers go up there and have to go against Billy Pye and Scott Beatty and Dallas Drake and Hiller, and it was just ridiculous. Hiller was the defenseman that was so damn good. God, they were just a loaded bunch. Man, oh man.
They had a good team, and
good old days.
it was fun. We're going to go back to play them next year up there, and trying to keep some of those. Those rivalries, intact. I think it's important. I enjoy playing, certainly the Minnesota schools,
sure.
And I think that's great for our fans too. And it's nice because a lot of those are close, and they can get to those games. And I think that's really a huge part of it too.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I made one trip to the Uper before we changed up all the conferences. I made it to Tech for a winter carnival a few years ago. And my vague recollection of the weekend is me and Jay Patolny at the hotel bar betting on speed skating. He said, "I'll take the guy in the red tights, you get the guy in the blue tights," and I got killed. I got killed all night long. It's just how it goes. I know we're probably a little short on time, but just a couple things about the actual tournament and the regionals. Regionals are a weird thing. I mean. Now, Manchester's sold out, which I think is great, because I got to believe as a coach you'd like that too, even though it's going to be a very BU-centric crowd, and whether it's Minnesota or Duluth that goes on to play BU, who knows, maybe Yale beats BU, whatever. But, I mean, certainly it's not going to be a home crowd advantage for either Minnesota team, but it's still better than playing in front of an empty building, isn't it? I mean, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, we both went through that the first game of the year at the Icebreaker. It was pretty sparse in there, and I think for our rivalry with them and the matchup, I mean, it was probably, pretty disheartening for the players. I think that's what this is really all about too. You want them to have a good experience. You want, we talk about it all the time at our meetings, to try and create the best atmosphere for the players. And, this one will be good. You're right. I mean, it's going to be an Eastern bias, but, a lot of those people are good hockey fans too, and hopefully they stick around, and I expect them to see a pretty good hockey game.
Is it big ice? Is it a big ice surface in Manchester?
No, it's not. I know at the University of New Hampshire they have it.
Okay.
This is where their American League team plays.
Okay, I got you. And just in closing, just a quick hi to my guy Joe. Say hi to Joe.
Hey, Joe. How are you doing?
He's right here. He's smiling. All right. Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate the time, and good luck this weekend. Have a good trip.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
That's Scott. Scott Sandelin, the University of Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs head coach. Thank you very much for Scott, and to Bob Nygaard for setting that up. They are traveling today. That's why that had to be taped. The Bulldogs are en route to Manchester, New Hampshire, where they wait the Minnesota Golden Gophers. It's a Friday face-off. I believe it's 5:30. But this is If you're a college hockey fan, this is the best weekend of hockey because you've got the regionals. They start Friday in 2 sites. They have the regional finals in those 2 sites Friday. Well, you have the regional semis and the other 2 sites on Saturday. Saturday, you've got all 4 regionals going. It is the best day of college hockey that there is. But this is a wild Wednesday, which means we talk NHL, we talk Minnesota Wild. Tony D and Scott Schweitz join after the break as we discuss the league's hottest team, unbeatable on the road.
Reach for this one.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back online.
Just turn it on. That took a very PG direction.
Along comes this hit show.
I'm constantly burping on stage.
Hey, you heard about Madonna, right?
Twin Cities hit show with Rusty, Courtney, and Chuck.
Had she fallen to the ground and her eyes rolled into the back of her head, what would you, Tim Mahoney, have done?
I'd have tried to make out with her.
Nice.
Get in line.
The Twin Cities hit show with Rusty, Courtney, and Chuck airs live daily, 9:30 to 10:30 on the Alive and Social Network.
Ever swallowed a bug or choke like Courtney on stage?
Yeah. I meant to do this.
With Suhan Unfiltered, sports columnist for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, Jim Suhan presents in-depth conversations with the best writers and sports personalities in the area. Suhan brings professional journalism flavor without the verbal censoring. Find out what unfiltered really means. Only on the Alive and Social Network. SuhanUnfiltered.com.
In the corner, Smith for Palmingville. Put it out in front, knocked out over, and it's pounded home on the rebound. Zach Parisi kept working, and the Minnesota Wild, with 8:15 remaining in the third, have tied. Dribbles to the front of the net. Suter brings it away from the way I always do.
Puppy. We're back. Wild Wednesday. Thanks to NHL.com and the Madison Square Garden Network for the highlight. That was Zach Parisi tying the game last night against the Islanders, getting his own rebound, corralling his own rebound off the feed from Koivu. The Wild win in a shootout. Another 4-point road swing on a back-to-back. Guys, how many times, and this is Wild Wednesday, Tony Dean, Jason McGovern, Scott Schweitz, we have seen this before. When the Wild are on the second part of a back-to-back.
Sorry.
Hey, can you hear me? I'm in delay. Can you hear me?
That's over there, yeah.
What is that from?
We have a speaker going.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, the Wild went on the road with traveling on a back-to-back. It's like they have to withstand this crazy flurry in the first 20 minutes, rely heavily on Dubnyk, who has yet to really let them down. And then as the game goes on, you see them slowly take over. I mean, as I'm watching the third period, I had no doubt they were going to tie this game. I mean, I know sometimes in hockey, you need a little puck luck, goaltender can stand on his head. But I'm watching this thinking there's no way we get shut out in this game. I mean, you could see that they were going to get a tying goal, and sure enough, they did.
I think I think that's a change in the mentality and it's a change in the expectations. In previous years, there'd be that pit of the stomach, the dread.
Yep.
When especially since that goal was just one that's so preventable. If Fontaine just doesn't get bodied by Okposo there, and if
Dubnyk put his glove on Okposo's stick blade.
Yes.
He couldn't get the puck.
And so when Tavares scores that goal, that's a hard-working goal and it's a garbage goal, and I respect it because that's what you got to do. Against this team, because they don't give up rebounds a lot. They play a very structured, just consistent brand of hockey in the defensive zone. You get contributions from your forwards on defense. So when they tap that goal in, I mean, it hurt a lot, but I just expected this team to win, and I think that's a change in the mentality of the fan base, and I think it's a change in the expectations of the fan base, and I'm ready for playoff hockey. I really am.
I'll tell you this. I mean, it might have hurt, but considering the flurry of shots that Dubnyk had to withstand in the first period,
oh yeah,
that's fine. If they're going to get that kind of goal, whatever. I mean, they could have been up 5-rip, like Parisi said, if Dubnyk wouldn't have stood on his head. Same thing with the previous back-to-back on the 14th when we played St. Louis. he stood up. He had a huge game. Swallowed up all kinds of shots. Didn't allow rebounds. And if they were put off to the side.
And rebound control is outrageous.
And that allowed the team to basically have the ability to get their legs in the second and third. I mean, Dubnyk doesn't come out in both of those back-to-back games and play an outstanding first period. It's over before it even begins.
Yep, I'm with you. What do you think of this guy's rebound control? I mean, as a matter of fact, when I was watching the Madison Square Garden feed, MSG Network feed, they basically made the remark that he must have a Velcro jersey. I mean, because he just doesn't give up softies.
It's not even the rebound control. It's just it's the ability to freeze a puck when he needs to. Like if he sees that it's things are a little wild, they need to kind of tone things back and kind of get a breather, settle things down. He'll hold on to that puck where he could play it. But I think he's smart enough to know, like, okay, it's time for a whistle. It's time to maybe change some personnel out, and I'm going to kind of settle this thing down. I mean, he's so calm. It's unreal. I mean, he's joking with the refs.
He's having a blast,
he gave Boychuk a little pad tap. Like, Boychuk was kind of hacking at it.
Yep.
And he froze it, kind of looked up at him, gave him a pad tap, and they both kind of nodded at each other. I'm like, the guy is, like, just calm as could be.
Our guy that was here last week, Ben Remington, he writes for Wild Extra. So we had Tony Wissu on from Hockey Wilderness, and then Wild Extra is the John Bonus site that he started.
Sure.
I was at the launch party. I wanted to go share the love. I wanted to talk about the Jeff Dubay Wild Wednesday show with them.
Oh, who doesn't?
And Ben Remington just published an article, and in the article it talks about head trajectory. And Sean Burke, former NHL, proud of you for getting that.
That sounded dirty.
So Sean Burke, the former NHL goaltender, is the goaltender coach in Arizona.
Almost lost it.
On the staff there, and he was the one that worked with Dubnyk on head trajectory. And what that had to do with is the positioning and tracking of the puck.
Always does.
And putting himself into positions. Right?
Sorry.
But the article was really good, and what it tried to do was help explain that this isn't just a fluke that Devan Dubnyk is traded here for a fourth-round pick, and then all of a sudden he goes on this run.
Right.
It had to do with Sean Burke working with this guy having 5 teams in 2 years, being a first-round bust basically in his hometown of Edmonton, and then now he arrived here at the perfect time. I mean, it's a credit to Chuck Fletcher for understanding that this is a guy that you're going to be able to get for not a premium, but a fourth-round pick that's ready to actually put it all together, and that a lot of that has to do with working with the staff there in Phoenix with Tippett and Sean Burke.
Well, I would say that considering what he went through the year prior, and I mean, I read an article that basically said when the Canadians were in the playoffs, Dubnyk was back at home in Edmonton when Carey Price got hurt. He was like the 4th guy on the depth chart. And people called him when Carey Price got hurt, and they're like, "Hey, are you going to be coming in?" He's like, "I'm in Edmonton, man. Like, I'm out." Like, he went to the coaching staff and basically is like, "I'm not going to be playing. Do you mind if I just
missed his
bounce
family.
and get home and see my family?"
Right.
And he was really at a rock bottom point in his career where he had to do some soul searching and determine what was the next step. And when Phoenix came calling, the biggest thing he said is they treated him like just fresh turn in the page. There wasn't anything talked about the year prior and kind of the tribulations that he went through. He worked with Sean Burke very well as far as being a quiet goalie, not exerting a lot of energy, being good positionally, be square against the shots, and really allowing himself the ability to get those shots and really cover up the net. I mean, there's coaches that were if I put it out a tweet today about the finally getting the love from the national writers, and LeBrun put up an article that basically was quoting all these coaches from the East and West Conference that we're talking about how great the Wild are and how deep they are and this and that. And I read other quotes from other coaches just talking about how positionally well he plays and how there's nothing to see when you're basically shooting the puck. He doesn't leave any gaps, and the shots you're getting in have to be so spot on that you're going to paint a corner. That's all you're getting from him.
I think the other component of this too is that this team was in dire need of a number 1 goaltender, and as a result of needing this guy to come in here and be successful, I think a lot of things just perfectly matched up. The Russo, who's one of our Live and Social Network guys with Suhan and
honestly,
Unfiltered.
You've done 6 plugs in like the last 5 minutes. I mean, you were on fire.
I know. I came in prepared. I had a production meeting with myself.
Very impressive. I'm sure you did.
It was a lot about head trajectory.
God. Go cry in the basement.
So, what Russo wrote about, and I thought it was so good, is that Parise had an Edina house, and the Edina house was previously Schultz.
Right.
And so when Devin Dubnyk gets here, Parise immediately comes to this guy, embraces him, and he's like, listen, bring your family here. I have this house.
He pulls
It's
it off
yours.
the market.
Pulls it off the market.
It was on the market.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was on for sale, and he's like, because that was his and I don't call it a halfway house, but basically it was his house that was halfway to the X. I mean, it was like he'd stay there sometimes if it was too late, and he'd meet his family there. It was like he's Parise. Yeah, he's rolling 2 houses, whatever.
Yeah.
But he
really cool.
pulled it off the market. He's like, you're not living in a hotel with a wife and a little baby.
Well, and he probably heard that Dubnyk went home last year and needed that family time and all that, and said, "Hey, I'll help out as much as I can."
And it's a testament to the leadership that he brings to this team. It's like, I'm not having my goaltender go sleeping at the Holiday Inn. Like, I want to he needs to go get a good night's rest, be able to have sound mind, and just be able to feel like this is home.
And this is before we saw how valuable he would become.
No, and it actually has been turning out to be like a genius move, because look what's happened now. But the guy doesn't want to go anywhere. Like, he's come out publicly and said, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm pretty sure we can work this out.
Yeah, it's going to be quote unquote negotiations.
Well, they can't let him go, but he's becoming pretty.
He's becoming valuable.
Yeah, he is. I mean, his stock is rising like. I mean, if he wanted to test the market, there would be takers.
Absolutely,
but if anybody would take a hometown discount, it sounds
I don't
like
think
he
he's
would.
going to, though. Like, I think he's basically saying, like, give me a reasonable contract, and I'm going to stay right
People
here.
Love it here.
Well,
they do love it here.
And I think a lot of people want to say that Craig Leopold and Chuck Fletcher were buying a championship when you give Suter and Parise 12-year deals. And I thought that was just unbelievably short-sighted, because ultimately what you're doing is you're buying a brand of hockey, you're buying leadership, you're rebuilding, or you're creating a sense of community for the Minnesota Wild that doesn't have this great tradition. It doesn't have the forefathers of the organization. Besides, Darby Hendrickson. No slight to Darby Hendrickson or Wes Walz, because those are foundation guys.
Don't forget about the Bomber.
And Bomber too, yeah. And all these guys are a part of the organization. Even Brunette, we savage him for the power play, but whatever. And so now this is like the actual thing taking place. You get a guy like Chris Stewart. Chris Stewart is a guy that everybody questioned his work ethic, his attitude, this and that. This guy is bought in. He's the big brother.
I like him.
And that's what I wrote about. So when I wrote about Chris Stewart coming here, I was like, this is the perfect addition, because this guy's gonna mix it up. He's gonna be a big brother. He's gonna be nasty. He plays in front of the net. He scores goals, and he's in a contract year, so he has this chance to make all the money.
He looks like he's having fun again too.
Yes, and with Dubnyk now, the great thing that you have happening is that. Literally, I believe that he's in the conversation for both the Vezina and the Hart. And I think the reason that you can say that, right, so we have an 8-game stretch here against all playoff teams. And assuming that they keep their trajectory that they're on, not only are they going to make the playoffs, but they could potentially catch the Blackhawks for third in the Central. The other portion of that, though, is there's one guy. Stewart's made contributions. Bergenheim's done a little bit. Schrader's been fun.
Well, he was really good yesterday.
Yes, Schrader was very good yesterday. But there's one guy that's been the complete difference maker for this team, and there's no question about it, and it's Dubnyk. So not only is that, in my mind, what I would call a most valuable player, but that's definitely the best goaltending play. And Kerry Hart and Pekka Rinne, those guys are undeniably the 1 and 1A as far as talent-wise and consistency. But I think there's a great case for Kemper to be both in the Hart and the Vezina.
Kemper.
That was a weird slip.
That's
there.
a reach. That is
What the
beyond
hell?
a reach. You pulled a hammy.
I was watching.
I know what you mean.
I was watching highlights, and Darcy called. He called Ryan Carter Clarksy and just got savaged on a video, and then they called him a bad teammate on the. It's on the Wild website. It was like best of Becoming Wild.
Pause.
And Ryan Carter just savaged him on camera. It was pretty good.
Oh, boy. Well, I mean, I would say that going back to the whole Parisi thing and the leadership, like, it's always noted that when people get traded here or they get picked up, like, Parisi's on the phone with them, like, right away, basically, like, welcome. He's like the ambassador to say, hey, welcome to the squad. He did it to Bergenheim. He called out, and I think between, like, he, Pominville, Van, I mean, you're calling up these guys from the other team, like, hey, really excited to get you here and you know, have you be part of what we're doing. And just that right off the bat really probably makes a difference to people. I mean, it makes a difference to somebody coming in like a Stewart that, you know, he was slighted when he got traded from the Blues to Buffalo and got basically traded out of a playoff run. And what does he do? He scores a beauty against the Blues.
A beauty.
I mean,
a
beauty.
I love that goal.
For a guy that's considered like a bruiser, I mean, that was
finesse.
silky, sexy goal. I mean, he put it right between the wickets, and basically as soon as he did it, you saw it. He's like, hell yeah. Like, you traded me to Buffalo? Stick it. Like,
and that was 2 wins against the Blues in 2 weeks, a week apart. We went into their house. We beat them. I mean, this team has something special going on. They're getting contributions up and down the lineup. I wrote about it today for Hockey Buzz. The decisions that are going to come down the pipe, if this team all gets healthy, you're going to have Brodziak in the lineup.
It's crowded.
You're going to have Haula in the lineup.
Carter's got to get in there, doesn't he?
Carter
find a spot to get him back in.
And Carter probably gets in for Bergenheim because I really don't think you can pull Fontaine out of the lineup. Fontaine had a little rough game last night.
You know why? Vanek likes playing with him.
He's a catalyst. You can't take him out.
I mean, Vanek likes playing with Fontaine. He does.
I think everybody likes playing with Fontaine because he can find you all over the ice. He's willing to take the shots.
There's a Bulldog plug.
He contributes in both ends of the ice. I mean, and the other thing about Fontaine, if he doesn't send an errant Twitter message out with a slur in it to one of his buddies, he makes his team probably a year and a half before he actually made it out of the AHL, and we're probably looking at like he's in his second contract here. I mean, you know, that he's never been a guy that's not had the NHL talent. He's just a little bit short. He's not a superstar guy, but he can play on every line. He's a catalyst for secondary scoring, and
he's like a utility infielder. I mean, basically, he can fit the need that where the need is. I mean, you can plug and play him wherever you need to put him. He can play with Koivu. He can play with Vanek. He can play fourth line minutes. He can play penalty kill. He can play whatever you need him to play.
Speaking of plug and play, Schrader on the penalty kill.
There's another guy. I mean,
how about that penalty kill?
You got tons of names that you can continue to bring up. I mean, we haven't even discussed the fact that, like, you know, you're going to have Zucker possibly back for the playoffs. I mean, so all of a sudden you got Zucker. Nobody talks about Cook because, honestly, with the way we're doing it, Cook isn't coming back in here with the personnel we have, which is – it's amazing that we have the problems and discussion that we're having right now because we have so much depth. We have another good line plus of players that could go in and fill needs.
Well, and I literally don't think that the Minnesota Wild has ever had an abundance of skill talent. Like, you know, you have a bunch of guys that, you know, bottom of the roster guys that can come in and be the grinder and play some dump and chase. But when you have a guy like Jordan Schrader who gets an opportunity to come back in after being down 6-7 games.
8 games.
8 games, right? And he comes out last night and he was dynamic with the puck. Every time he touched it, he was looking to make something happen.
But that's the good thing. That's the good thing about it is when you got guys sitting in the press box, when their numbers called, they're gonna be like, I'm going to make you feel sorry that you didn't put me in the previous 8 games. I'm going to make you think twice before you're going to pull me back out.
And this is a small sample size. You look at teams like Detroit, who they got guys better than, you know, maybe some of our top 6 that sit in Grand Rapids for years, that play 3-4 years in the AHL, like the Nyquist kid. That Nyquist kid never even got a sniff at the NHL level because they could afford to do it because they had built up the system that way. And it certainly looks like headed into the playoffs here, if Zucker comes back, he's an immediate upgrade to your top 6. And that's not taking anything away from any of the forwards that are in there.
Not at all.
But just not only does his speed and change things, but the way he was playing with Koivu fed off of that. Koivu was able to get in the zone. He was able to get in position. He was scoring goals. And, you know, Stewart and Koivu have been really good. Nino has been the guy that holds them together. And it's been really interesting to see Nino go from maybe like the go-to guy on the third line with Charlie Coyle to being a glue guy on the second line with Chris Stewart and Koivu that goes into the corners, that uses his speed on the forecheck, that retrieves the puck and starts that cycle that they do. So, I would look at probably Bergenheim is going to be the guy that comes out of the lineup for Ryan Carter or for Jordan Schrader. And I think Yo's going to have to get it right, and it's going to be a lot of situational. So they're going to have an 8-game stretch here to finish the season against 8 teams that I believe will be in the postseason, and then we'll get a little preview of how he's going to look to match up against those teams.
Well, the beauty thing is too, with the depth that you have, if you have back-to-backs and you have guys that you can give a night off to, you have a whole bench that basically is ready to come in that are fresh legs. I mean, so if you're talking about like this weekend when we have the back-to-back with Calgary and LA, you got probably 2-3 guys that you could say, hey, you guys take a night off. We got a fresh set of legs in the press box. They're going to come in, and it's going to be, and I continue to use the word plug and play, but that's what it is, because these guys are so versatile that they can come in and fit the role that others are coming out with. And a player like Carter and a player like Zucker are going to be so hungry to get in and play. It's going to be the same type of response that you're going to see like you had from Schrader. It's going to be they're so hungry to get in and produce. It's going to be, and Zucker especially, he's going to be like a Tasmanian devil out there.
Let's take a quick break and come back and take it to the top, commercial-free. A couple things to get to. A Wild free agent signing out of college. And don't look now, but who's been the hottest player on the Minnesota Wild? We'll talk about it.
What are you drinking tonight, Jason?
The Minnesota Pubcast with Jason and Molly.
I'm drinking a Lithbridge Hop Dish.
It's Pub Talk from a Minnesotan perspective.
I'm always really proud of where I'm from. I'm super proud of Minnesota, and I think Minneapolis is awesome. I think St. Paul is awesome. I think they're a really awesome cultural epicenter.
With great local guests.
So the other voice you hear in the room today is Jerry Fagerberg from the City Pages. Talk about the official Minnesota Tall Boy, which your piece is on the cover of the City Pages today.
It is on the cover, came out today.
Talking movies.
All right, you saw Boyhood. I need to hear what you thought.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Sports.
A guy who was undrafted knew what was coming.
And everything else you talk about at the pub.
Let's not pretend like we know what we're talking about.
Well, what do you think I do every show?
The Minnesota Pubcast with Jason McGovern and Molly Burke. Listen at mnpubcast.com or subscribe on iTunes.
We want to just find meaning in life.
Join longtime radio personality and producer Kelly Guest and friend, CEO of Fantasy Gifts, Colleen Bertino, as they talk about all things sex, men, women. Lend them your ears and learn everything you wanted to know about sex and intimacy. Only here on the Alive and Social Network.
Wild Wednesday. Buffy. Wild Wednesday continues. We're at Bennett's Chop and Rail House, West 7th. Jeff Dubay, Jason McGovern, Scott Schweitz, Tony Dean. Talking NHL, talking Wild. The Wild, we'll get to the free agent signing in a minute. But all you Vanek haters, what did he score in 8 straight games going into last night?
He's got an 8-game point streak.
Longest of his career, I believe.
Correct.
And he is currently, I was just looking at it, 49 points, tied for second on the Wild with Pominville trailing only Parisi. What do the haters think now?
I think there was a stat that he scored as many points in like his past like 8 or 9 or 10 games than he did in his like 30 previous or something ridiculous. It was like it's like the guy's like
he's always been a streaky scorer. Though.
Yeah, he's got a little slower start, but I mean he's kind of like the equivalent of a back-to-back game for the Wild. Like the second end of a back-to-back, they take a little while to heat up.
Yep.
And then they're bringing a flurry.
But you know what else too? Has anybody scored more clutch goals this year than him? I mean, like late goals in like third period tying.
Zach Parise, probably.
Well, okay. Well, come on. Let's stay in the realm of reality here. I mean, Parisi's on a different plane. But of the mere mortals that play for the Minnesota Wild, has anybody scored more clutch goals?
No, I don't think so. I've been accused of being a Vanek apologist this year, most specifically by Felska, right? Felska, who
I invited him.
You've been accused of being a Vanek apologist?
Yeah, you're always.
I think you're like a Vanek basher.
Yeah, I thought you were a hater earlier.
Yeah, no, I'm a hater for many different reasons, but not with Vanek, and because I spent the whole year trying to explain to people that. Obviously, he's taken a step back with his skating, and that changes what looks he gets, right? But his hockey IQ and his passing this year has created offense, and that's why he has a point streak going. That's why he's contributed up and down the lineup. Now it looks like he's found a home with Charlie Coyle and Fontaine. One of the things that he's always been credited for and griped about is complaining about who he plays with on the line, or wanting to play with Granlund or Tavares or the one of the kids in Montreal.
Well, he wanted to play with like Granlund and Parise. I mean, basically is what he went to Yo and gave him kind of a shot across the bow to say, hey, put me with some talent and I'll produce. But now it comes out that he's on a third line, and this is where his sweet spot is. So you have a Thomas Vanek on a third line. Like, just take a step back and think of that. Yeah. Like, think of that. Think of that you have a Thomas Vanek on your third line that is producing more than he has all year.
Yes.
That shows that is a microcosm of what this team is basically depth through 4 lines, and it doesn't matter where he is, where you are, where you're playing, what you're doing, you're putting up points.
And it also, I mean, it speaks to fit though too. I mean, I'm a huge advocate that you have to find players that are complementary of each other. There's certain players that play certain roles and they'll produce on lines, and then there's certain players that just don't fit on lines. That's why I've always just been. It drives me crazy to see Charlie Coyle on a top 6 line, not shooting the puck, not carrying the puck, not doing that stuff. Now that he has settled in and been very productive and effective at the center position on the third line, I love his game, and I think he's a guy that's been very, very good.
He's a clutch guy too. I mean, Charlie Coyle on that line. I would say Thomas Vanek is a clutch, but I'd say that line is clutch. I mean, the fact that we got players like Coyle scoring some gritty, dirty goals, like Parise type goals that is in the paint, and then you have Vanek scoring goals. I mean, from the passes, whether it's from behind the net or somebody gets it to him kind of in the low slot or whatever it is.
How about when they put the 3 big guys together? I mean, he's played, if I'm not mistaken, has he not put Coyle, Stewart, and Niederreiter on a line together? I mean, I've seen that. He's had a combination of 3 big guys. They just go out and grind.
They've done a little bit of that. Right now, Niederreiter's playing with Koivu and Stewart, and that line is as big as anybody.
That's a big line.
I think, it's interesting. I think people are always going to latch on to Vanek as a lightning rod. Minnesota Wild fans are always going to latch on to Koivu.
They thought he was Heatley. In all honesty, he came in after Heatley, and they thought he was Heatley.
There's so many articles I've seen that is like Heatley 2.0,
which is so bullshit.
I mean, I think people realize, like, okay, he's coming in here, or they have to realize that he's not going to come in here and immediately be turnkey. He's going to have to figure out like where he fits and figure out the system a little bit.
I think he also kind of fell victim to the fact that, I mean, he went in the tank when everybody went in the tank.
Well, he fell victim to the fact that the franchise sold the fans the idea that this guy was a sniper guy we're bringing in for goals.
Right.
And when it didn't happen right away, you were like, oh, we got sold a false bill of goods, and this guy's a bum.
Well, but don't you think? I'm not saying he didn't contribute to the woes, but I think a lot of guys kind of got dragged down by the overall malaise that came over this team. I mean, Pominville was doing nothing. Parise was going through the death of his father. Vanek was doing nothing. I mean, we're just going back to like.
If you want to really, take a look at this season and see how absolutely incredible we are where we are, considering the deaths of fathers of 2 of our captains.
Yep.
Okay. Then you have that. Then you have the fact that we had typhoid go through the locker room.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Literally, like the mumps went through almost an entire roster, and then you have.
And you've had injuries.
And you've had our goalie just I don't know what you even want to call it, but it's just disaster.
By the way, it's made me, and I know this is talk about flip flop, but I'm such a believer in Mike Yeo right now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, he's got to be considered one of the candidates for Coach of the Year when you look at all the adversity that this team had. And I know Dubnyk came riding in on a fucking white horse and saved the season and makes it makes your coach look better than
I'm gonna get a T-shirt with it on.
Anytime you get a goaltender that's playing at his level, it's gonna make any coach look good.
Sure.
And you don't want to give a guy too much credit, but I mean, there was a lot of adversity. Scott just ran down the list.
If you want to go Jack Adams, you can add that to the Hart and the Vezina, but if you're going to do all that, you got to add Fletcher in there with GM of the Year.
Yes.
If you miss out on GM of the Year, there is no GM that has done better things.
Home and Jack Adams tonight.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue.
Good with. What was
that the stranger?
That was a weird.
Was that Jack Daniels, but it's a stranger?
God, we're idiots. Continue.
Proud of you.
Oh, jeez. I like making Scott laugh because he gets like the buck-tooth grin and his eyes get pointed.
Lost my train of thought.
Well, your train of thought was probably that Mike Yeo has earned
awards up and down the
well, GM, and the other article that LeBrun wrote was basically about Chuck Fletcher and how he's been learning to do the general manager role since he was like 12, watching his dad do it, kind of growing up with it. was up in Toronto, had dinner with his dad, and was basically talking through things. And even LeBron's like, this guy has to be considered for the GM of the year because what he's done and moves he's made and how calm he's been, and not only the Dubnyk, acquisition for a third rounder, but you hold out and you get Stewart for a second rounder. You're pulling in players when you need to pull in players. You got Vanek in the offseason. You're making moves you need to move, and you're making things happen. And above all, when things are so contentious and everybody's calling for Yo's head, you sit back and kind of take a couple breaths and say, wait a minute, let's figure out what's wrong with this team and let's fix it. And he goes out and gets a goalie, and everything is fixed. Everybody's bought in.
Which shows the system worked.
Yeah, if the system works,
it's
just, and I said it before, I said the goalie is the problem, not the coach. If you fix the goalie, everything else will follow.
And don't you think that actually that contributed to the Pominvilles and the Vaneks, A, being perceived wrong, but also kind of playing tight and probably trying to do too much and all that pressing.
They were not playing their roles.
Right, they weren't playing their game.
When you can't focus on what you do best, and you have to always have, I said it before, when you have in the back of your mind that you have a soft goalie that is going to let in soft goals, and you have to worry about doing more than what your role is, meaning you have to do more defensively to prevent goals, and that's taking you off what you can do offensively, it screws everything up because it's not the player that you're meant to be. And so when you have to cover other roles and other things and other responsibilities, it's a trickle-down effect. It's not, you're not going to score goals on the front end, and goals are going to happen on the back end, and that's what you see. We went through that streak where we lost 12 games in 14 or something like that.
Okay, back in January, we pointed out we were grasping for straws. We were looking for any reason for this team to have a turnaround. Somewhat jokingly, tongue-in-cheek, called Dubnyk the savior. We looked at the schedule and said, boy, through mid to late February, this thing is soft. It's viable for a turnaround. Then a couple weeks ago, you guys started talking about how hard it gets. I mean, playoff team after playoff team, 4 back-to-backs. How remarkable is it that there have been a couple hiccups, home loss to Washington, but, it is what it is. Ovechkin does his thing. There's not much you can do. There have been a couple of hiccups, home loss to Edmonton, home loss to Washington, losses that maybe caught you a little off guard, but they have yet to lose back-to-back, which there's no tougher beat in the league than the Wild off a loss. I mean, they just don't lose. But on the road with back-to-backs against playoff teams, St. Louis twice, Nashville twice, both on the road. I mean, nothing to slow them down. I mean, in the meat of a killer schedule, they have not lost a beat.
They got 10 in a row on the road. I mean, that's unbelievable to me because the Wild last year, right? Great home team, terrible on the road. This year, they've been better on the road than they have on their own, on their home ice. And I think that all of this is setting up for a great opportunity to make a deep run in the playoffs. When they dug out of that hole, now they have 8 games left, all playoff opponents. They have 5 games in a row at home. They go on the road for 3, and then hopefully we're staring down the barrel of going into, I want Nashville. Maybe you get St. Louis. Maybe you got to go out to Anaheim. I mean, this right now is the seasoning, getting ready for the big meal.
Well, and let's not forget, a year ago they couldn't win on the road in the playoffs either. They made a reasonable run. Into the second round, late into the second round, with winning, I believe, 1 road game the whole way. That was at Game 7.
Game 7.
Wow, and that Colorado series had some just atrocious calls in Colorado.
Yeah.
That gifted them. That presented them on a silver platter victories.
Yeah.
Which
you mean them being Colorado?
And Avalanche fans can suck it. Also.
Yeah.
Well, but Jeff, I think you brought up before the show that could this team have possibly gotten hot too early?
I hate it when a team shoots its wad, prematurely.
I don't think so. I don't think it can right now.
I hope you're right.
Because here's the deal.
Trajectory.
I think if you continue to play top talent here through the stretch, some people might take it as like, oh, this is daunting. We have to play all these high-class teams and these playoff teams like before the playoffs. I don't think that's a worry at all. I'd be more worried if we have to play softies before.
Well, it's kind of the talk where we've been talking college hockey, NCHC versus WCHA or Big Ten. You want to be in the best conference or have the biggest test.
You don't want to play down to your opponent because you want to play high-level hockey going into the playoffs. And when you're playing playoff teams, the last, what did we say? It was like 14 out of 15 of your final games are against playoff teams. The losses that we've had have been to like Edmonton, Colorado. Players that we feel we can take your foot off the gas.
Yeah.
And then you lose. And we haven't lost a game since Dubnyk has been here by more than one goal, only once. One time.
Well, the Washington, did they have an empty netter?
No. It was basically 1-goal games aside from the Columbus Blue Jackets was like the third game that Dubnyk played, and that was a 2-goal win. Other than that, it's been 1-goal wins. That's it.
But this team doesn't rely on offense either. I mean, if you look at teams that rely on offense, that can dry up quickly. I mean, this is a team that not only do they roll 3 pairings that's
what I love. The defense is deep. I mean, if Duba and Leopold are your third pair, that's pretty fucking good.
And being honest about it, probably Folan's a better. He's probably a more talented kid, but he doesn't play on the left side. So and they're gonna play. They play Dumba in a special role. He'll play third pair minutes with top pair power play time.
Well, they like that one-timer, that right-handed one-timer at the top of the circle.
He has been great.
And I mean, that OT winner.
He's electric. I mean, offensively, he's electric.
And they let him play in overtime. They let him play on the penalty kill. When he gets some space, he's a catalyst. He uses his speed. He uses this handle of the puck. I mean, he gets going.
And he's got a pair.
Yes.
Well, you know what? He showed that the other night, not last game, but the game before that, I think, where he just made a move where just even going behind his own net, but he started in front of it, and it's one of those places where you should just dump the puck, like just get rid of it. But if you have that confidence and you have that savvy, you can get around that guy. He gets around it, goes behind the net, makes a breakout pass. And the difference between that is being stuck in your zone for another minute possibly, or breaking out. And it was just a quick little move, but it was that to see a 20-year-old with the confidence to make that move right in front of his own net.
And you know where he's
cool.
To me, where he separates himself even, I mean, he can carry the mail. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But in the NHL, you got to be careful. I mean, if you are the last guy, you cannot carry the mail. I mean, if you're a defenseman carrying it up and there's nobody behind you, you've got to get rid of it. But where he's amazingly bold to me is in support of the puck. I mean, he without the puck on his stick, he jumps up. I mean,
he's right in the rush.
He's not afraid.
And you know what was so interesting this summer is you could tell that he's trying to make the team, right? So in every one of the prospect scrimmages, every time I saw him in the preseason, he is proving that he's capable of not overcommitting. And what that was doing was it was making it so that he played a quiet game and he was strong positionally, but it didn't showcase any of the things that I've seen him do in juniors, at the World Juniors in Iowa. It didn't showcase that dynamic that just.
And that's the reason we drafted him.
And so what you kind of realize is once this kid had earned a certain level of whatever it is with Mike Yeo, and a lot of it had to do with you lose Spurgeon, you lose a couple guys, and then you need to rely on this guy. Well, now he's earned his role. He's doing it the right way, and this is a 20-year-old kid that just is electric. He has the same thing that Marion Gaborik had. When he gets the puck on his stick, when he gets going, when he's flying down there, everybody stands up. They expect it. They come to expect it. We get some of that with Jason Zucker, and I mean, Parise's a grinder, so he'll score the goals like the one he did to tie the game. But with the puck on his stick, Matthew Dumba just has genius moments.
I tell you, looking as we're trying to wrap things up here shortly, guys. Looking at the schedule, it's really intriguing because the Wild come home. And they got the Flames and they got the Kings, and the Kings are on the Kings would be a back-to-back for the Wild, but it's a back-to-back with no travel for the Wild. And the Kings are out east right now. They were in New York last night. They're on the island tomorrow. So they're on an every other day thing. They go Tuesday, Thursday, then Saturday here. So I mean they're going to come in a little worn down. I mean I think potentially at the end of a road swing. So I don't really look at that back-to-back with no travel for the Wild as a problem.
We're coming up on a five-game homestand before we basically have to finish off the season on the road.
Yep.
That's basically how it is. So you have Calgary, you have LA, you have the Rangers, you have the Wings, and then you have Winnipeg.
Jets, yep.
Winnipeg to finish off the season.
But then the last three, by the way, on the road, killer. I mean Chicago, Nashville, St. Louis.
But you're basically playing the Central Division playoff spots.
Which by the way gives you a chance.
1, 2, and 3
gives you a chance to become one of those three.
And honestly, like the way we've been playing, none of these scare me at all. I mean, you just saw that New York can get their ass handed to them at home. So I'm not worried about them. I'm not worried about the Wings. We've shown we can beat them. We've shown we can beat the Flames. We've shown we can beat LA. Every single one of these teams we can beat.
Hey, by the way,
out of all of them, I'd say Chicago might be, considering how well they're playing even without Kane, is the only one that maybe gives me a little pause.
And you know the Wild are starting to catch some attention nationally. But you read the LeBron stuff. I mean, you keep in touch with the national guys. But you look at the schedule coming up. They are on the NHL Network on Saturday against the Kings. They're on Hockey Night in Canada a week after that against the Red Wings. They're on NBC Sports at Chicago, and they're on the NBC Sports Network again against St. Louis. I mean, nationally, they're every other game they've got the rest of the year. They're on a national feed somewhere.
I mean, but this team is the hottest team in hockey. You know, okay, so Ottawa's 9-1, right? But so what?
Yeah.
Do we think Ottawa has a chance at the Cup? No. They have no shot at the Cup.
And this isn't a 9-1 run. This is a 2-month run.
And that's not even a shot at Hammond, which is a great story. The Hamburglar. It's not a shot at their young players who I think are really good. But Ottawa is not in the conversation. Not for the Cup. They're having a nice run. They're you know, I mean, this Wild team has not only dug out of a hole, which we didn't, I didn't. I had to eat my words. I have to,
nobody saw this coming. Nobody did.
I have to eat my words with Yo too. I thought, maybe this guy should be fired. He's a statue.
I was thinking it too.
And then he's standing there thinking, I'm doing a good job, and everybody else can suck it. And he proved it again. And so, going down the stretch, I think that every one of these teams doesn't want to match up with the Wild before the conference championship.
I'm with you. Well, look at the West right now. The way the Kings are playing. I watched the Kings Rangers last night. Rube cred to me. I had the Wild on one screen, and then on the computer, I had the Kings Rangers on NBC Sports Network. So I was watching two games at once. The Kings looked really, really good. I mean, the Rangers are no pushover, obviously, at home. Potentially right now, the bottom two seeds in the West could be the Wild and the Kings. Good luck to the number 1 and 2. I mean, seriously.
Well, that's the set. I mean, they said early on that whoever faces, and they were talking about the Wild, not the Kings, but they thought if the Wild came in at the last wild card spot, like, congratulations, number 1 team in the West. Yeah. You just pulled the Wild.
Especially with Nashville.
Way to go.
Nashville's vulnerable.
And I think they even quoted the teams to say, like, really? Like, we get this and then we get this team? Like, that's our first team. We'd rather have somebody in the middle, like a Vancouver or somebody else.
Calgary, even though they're hot.
Yeah, somebody else to basically that maybe played better in the beginning of the season.
Yep.
Not these guys, because they can beat you any given night.
And if it sets up like that, why not let the Blues and the Blackhawks just beat the shit out of each other?
Yes.
Like
a physical toll on each other. Yep.
Yes.
Hey, just in closing, Wild make a free agent signing. I promised. I teased this earlier, so I'll get to it. Grayson Downing, he was a senior, undrafted for the UNH Wildcats. I'm not saying that this guy's going to be a difference maker, but he did have a hell of a senior year. 21 goals, 36 points, made him the 3rd leading goal scorer in Hockey East. I mean, and we're talking about a league that had Eichel. And by the way, did you see Eichel in that's his name, isn't it? Eichel, the guy.
Yeah, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, did you see him play for BU this past weekend in the tournament?
I missed it. I was working.
Man, oh man. I mean, he's like toe dragging people, walking people.
Oh yeah.
He's sick.
No, I know.
He's sick.
And that, you know what? That kid's tough. Both those top kids are tough. Him and McDavid. Not only are they skilled, not only are they superstar, but they are tough kids, and they're gonna be 18 years old. They're gonna be dynamic rookies.
And I tell you what, though, don't scoff at undrafted free agent signings. I mean, that's what Christian Folin was as well.
And you know what? And so this kid, right? He comes from the University of
New Hampshire.
No Hardware. Affectionately.
Thank you so much.
Scott Schweitz, make sure I was reminded of that.
That's what it stands for.
He comes.
Gophers got him.
He comes from a team that's a down year. He's a guy that he's going to come in and he's a true center. So it's something that they needed, and they targeted this kid. That they had a couple different suitors lined up. He wanted to come here. He obviously is smart about knowing what the organization has. You lose Zach Phillips in a trade, and by lose I mean you did yourself a favor and shipped that kid so he can party on the East Coast instead of Des Moines.
I mean, the kid's 6 foot, 200 pounds. He scored 21 goals. I mean, in a good league.
And he's a true center. I mean, that's
22 years old too. By the way,
that's the thing.
Physically mature.
He's going to come in. He's going to be either he's going to be in the top 9. He's going to center a line down there. He's going to play with some of the wings that you've added down there, and he's going to be another little piece to make sure that Iowa isn't as terrible next year as they are.
Closing thoughts, gentlemen, as we wrap it?
I would say the only thing is I spoke with my ticket agent today, and she said
you're so big.
And she told me something that I thought I wouldn't hear for quite a long time, is that in another month the warming house will be back in effect.
The waiting list.
The waiting list will be back in effect, and I remember once upon a time when I had to get tickets and I had to be in the warming house before I got tickets because everything was sold out and we had the streak.
It did move quickly.
She said this today, and I'm like, are you serious? She goes, we've been selling ticket packs like they're going out of style.
Outstanding. And another great show, gentlemen. Thanks again.
Very good to be here at Bennett's.
We'll be here next
to
Wednesday.
Joe Bennett, right?
Absolutely. Love Bennett's. I had the tomahawk ribeye. Can I say that? Is that politically incorrect? I had the tomahawk ribeye.
It was on the menu. I mean, you can say it.
I ate it like 2.5 hours ago. It's time for me to go to. It's a good thing the show's over.
I think everybody.
I've been in clench mode for 15 minutes.
Oh.
I gotta go.